Have you ever been forced to choose between who you are and the people you love most in the world? I'm talking about the kind of gut-wrenching moment where standing up for what you believe in means losing everything you've ever known, your family, your home, your sense of belonging. That's exactly what happened to me when I decided to walk away from the strict religious upbringing I'd been raised in, only to have my entire family turn their backs on me like I was a stranger, leaving me shattered and alone in a world I wasn't sure I could face. This isn't just a story about rejection. It's about the raw, messy journey of rebuilding yourself from the ground up, finding unexpected strength in the most unlikely places, and wrestling with the question of whether you can ever truly let go of the people who shaped you, even when they've hurt you beyond repair. Stick with me as I take you through the pain of losing my family, the loneliness that nearly broke me, and the surprising lifeline that pulled me back from the edge. I'm still figuring out what comes next, and I need your help to decide how to move forward. Let's dive into the hardest, and somehow most hopeful, chapter of my life. My name's Ethan, and I'm 29 now, living in a small, cluttered apartment in Asheville, North Carolina, a quirky mountain town nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains, known for its artsy vibe, craft breweries, and the kind of natural beauty that can take your breath away with misty peaks and winding forest trails. This story unfolds between 2015 and 2023, centered on the devastating fallout with my family when I rejected the rigid evangelical beliefs I'd been raised with, a decision that led to them cutting me out of their lives completely by 2016. The emotional conflict tearing me apart is the clash between my desperate longing for the family I lost, my parents, my two younger sisters, the only roots I'd ever known, and the fierce need to stay true to myself, even if it means living with the ache of their rejection every single day. The unexpected twist came in 2019, when I learned through a distant cousin that my family hadn't just shunned me out of anger. They were struggling with their own guilt and fear, believing they were saving my soul by pushing me away, a revelation that flipped my pain into a confusing mix of empathy and lingering hurt. This all plays out in Asheville and the surrounding Appalachian region, where the rolling hills and quiet rivers have been both a refuge and a reminder of the isolation I've endured. Growing up, my family was my entire world, living in a tight-knit community just outside Asheville in a small town called Black Mountain, where Sunday church services at our evangelical congregation were the heartbeat of our lives, and the smell of pine from the nearby woods mixed with the scent of my mom's homemade biscuits on quiet mornings. I was the oldest of three, always the responsible one, helping my dad fix fences on our modest property or reading Bible stories to my sisters, Lily and Hannah, under the glow of a single lamp in our shared living room, never imagining I'd one day be the outcast. Now, as I sit in my apartment with the distant hum of downtown Asheville filtering through my cracked window, I think back to those days of blind faith, wondering how I didn't see the cracks in our bond before they turned into a canyon. The breaking point came in the fall of 2015, during a crisp October when the Blue Ridge Mountains were ablaze with orange and red leaves, and I finally admitted to myself, and then to my family, that I no longer believed in the strict doctrines we'd been raised with. I'd been questioning things for years, sneaking books on philosophy and science from the Asheville Library, feeling a quiet rebellion grow as I hiked alone along the Appalachian Trail, the vastness of the mountains making the rules of our church feel smaller, less absolute. When I sat my parents down in our old kitchen, the wooden table scarred from years of family meals, and told them I couldn't live by their faith anymore, the silence that followed was heavier than any sermon I'd ever heard, their faces hardening with a mix of shock and betrayal that cut me deeper than I'd expected, leaving me trembling as I realized I might have just lost everything. The aftermath was swift and brutal, unfolding through the gray, chilly months of late 2015 into early 2016, as my family made it clear I was no longer welcome, their rejection a cold wind that matched the winter frost creeping over Asheville streets. My dad, a man of few words but fierce conviction, told me I'd chosen a path of sin, while my mom cried silently, unable to look at me, and my sisters, once my shadows, were kept away, as if my doubts were contagious. I moved out within a week, crashing on a friend's couch in downtown Asheville, the vibrant art scene and buskers on Biltmore Avenue a jarring contrast to the emptiness I felt. Each night spent staring at the ceiling, replaying my parents' disappointed faces, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life by being honest. The emotional toll of being shunned hit me hardest in 2016 as I scrambled to build a life from scratch in Asheville, a city that felt both freeing and foreign, its bohemian spirit clashing with the weight of my loneliness. I took a job as a barista at a local coffee shop near Pack Square, the smell of roasted beans and the chatter of tourists a distraction, but every quiet moment brought a flood of memories. Sunday potlucks after church, my sister's giggles during backyard games, now tainted by the silence of my family's absence. I'd walk along the French Broad River on my days off, the water's steady flow a mirror to my endless questions. Had I been too stubborn? Should I have kept my doubts hidden to save our bond? The misty mountains surrounding Asheville felt like a wall, beautiful but isolating, echoing the barrier between me and the only home I'd ever known. By 2017, the ache of rejection had settled into a dull, constant pain, and I tried to fill the void with routine, though the sense of being unmoored never fully left me. I moved into a cheap studio apartment in West Asheville, the walls thin enough to hear my neighbors' lives, a reminder of how alone I was as I sketched in notebooks late at night, dreaming of becoming an artist but lacking the drive to chase it. I'd wander through the River Arts District, surrounded by galleries and murals, feeling like an outsider even in a town known for embracing misfits, haunted by thoughts of my sisters growing up without me, wondering if they hated me now or if they even remembered our late-night whispers. Asheville's rainy springs, with fog clinging to the mountains, matched my mood, each drop a reminder of the family I'd lost, leaving me to question if I'd ever feel whole again. The loneliness deepened in 2018 as I watched friends build their own families while I remained stuck in the shadow of mine. The vibrant energy of Asheville's summer festivals a cruel backdrop to my internal struggle. I'd sit on the steps of the Basilica of St. Lawrence during quiet evenings, the historic architecture a stark contrast to my crumbling sense of self, wrestling with anger toward my parents for choosing doctrine over their son, and guilt for the pain I must have caused them by walking away. I started avoiding places tied to my past, like the small diner in Black Mountain where we'd had family breakfasts, unable to face the ghosts of happier times without feeling that sting of rejection. The Blue Ridge Parkway, with its endless scenic overlooks, became my escape, though every breathtaking view was tinged with the question of whether I'd been wrong to prioritize my truth over their love. A flicker of hope emerged in late 2018 when I stumbled into a group of friends at a local open mic night in a dive bar off Haywood Road, a ragtag crew of artists and free spirits who didn't care about my past or my lack of faith, offering a lifeline I hadn't expected. They welcomed me with open arms, inviting me to late-night bonfires in the mountains, their laughter and shared stories about their own struggles with family, identity, addiction, a balm to my wounded soul as we sat under starry skies, the crackle of the fire drowning out my doubts. I remember one night, perched on a rocky outcrop near Looking Glass Falls, feeling a warmth I hadn't known since childhood, though even then, a part of me ached for my sister's voices in that circle, a reminder that no amount of new connections could fully replace the family I'd lost. The unexpected twist came in the summer of 2019, on a humid July evening when Asheville's streets buzzed with tourists, and a distant cousin I hadn't spoken to in years reached out with news that turned my world upside down. She told me my family hadn't just cut me off out of anger or judgment. They were torn apart by guilt, believing they were following their faith by shunning me to save my soul, praying every night for my return while grappling with their own doubts about whether they'd done the right thing. Sitting on my sagging couch, the distant sound of a street musician's guitar drifting through my window, I felt a storm of emotions. Shock that their rejection came from a place of twisted love, anger that they'd never told me, and a strange pang of empathy for their pain, leaving me more confused than ever about how to feel. Reeling from this revelation, I spent the rest of 2019 and into 2020 wrestling with what it meant, torn between the hurt they'd caused and this new glimpse into their perspective, each foggy morning in Asheville a step toward understanding, but not yet peace. I didn't reach out, too raw, too unsure, but I started journaling my thoughts, scribbling late at night under the dim light of a thrift store lamp, trying to unpack years of resentment against the idea that they thought they were protecting me. I'd hike to the top of Mount Pisgah on weekends, the panoramic view of the mountains stretching endlessly, wondering if I'd been too quick to see them as villains, or if their intentions even mattered when the outcome was still my isolation. Asheville's slow rhythm, farmers markets, quiet coffee shops, felt like a nudge to reconsider, though every memory of their silence kept me from picking up the phone. The emotional weight of processing this lingered through 2020, with the pandemic locking down Asheville and forcing me into deeper introspection, the empty streets outside my window a mirror to the void I still carried. I'd sit in my apartment, the city eerily silent, no drum circles in Pritchard Park, no bustle on Lexington Avenue, staring at old family photos I'd kept hidden in a drawer, like one of us at a church picnic, all smiles, wondering how faith could both bind and break us. My new friends became my lifeline, checking in through video calls, their support a reminder I wasn't entirely alone, though every virtual hangout ended with me questioning if I'd overreacted to my family's rejection or if reaching out now would just reopen old wounds. The gloom of Asheville's endless rain that year felt heavier, each drop a reminder of the roots I'd been torn from, while I clung to the hope of new connections but feared I'd never fully heal. By 2021, I'd started leaning harder on my chosen family, letting their acceptance anchor me as I rebuilt my sense of self, though the shadow of my blood family never fully faded. We'd gather for impromptu art sessions in someone's garage, painting and laughing over cheap beer, the smell of turpentine mixing with the mountain air, a stark contrast to the rigid Sundays of my childhood, though I'd still catch myself wondering what Lily and Hannah were doing, if they ever thought of me. I took up freelance graphic design, working from coffee shops like Drippolator, the hum of conversation grounding me, though every quiet moment brought thoughts of my parents' guilt, questioning if I'd been too harsh in cutting them out of my heart, or if self-preservation demanded that distance. Asheville's vibrant recovery, streets alive again, music spilling from bars, pushed me to keep growing, though the unresolved ache remained a quiet companion. Reflecting on my past became a near-constant loop in 2022, especially on quiet nights when I'd sit on my tiny balcony, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold, thinking about the family I'd once had. I'd recall the time my dad taught me to fish in a creek near our house, his rare smile a memory now shadowed by the image of his stern face when I left. I thought about my sister's handmade birthday cards, now warped by years of silence, wondering if they'd been told I was a lost cause, or if they secretly missed me too. I'd wander through Asheville's botanical gardens, the scent of wildflowers grounding me, questioning if I'd ignored signs of their struggle with my choice, or if I'd been too wrapped up in my own pain to see theirs. The city's resilience, locals rebuilding after hard times, community events blooming, challenged me to decide if I could let go of the past, or if some hurts were too deep to heal. By early 2023, I'd built a life I could be proud of, with a tight-knit circle of friends and a growing design portfolio, though the journey with my family remained an open wound I wasn't sure how to close. I celebrated small wins, like a group camping trip to Great Smoky Mountains National Park, laughing around a fire with people who'd become my family, though I still caught flickers of longing in my reflection during quiet moments, a reminder of the blood ties I couldn't fully sever. I started volunteering at a local community center, teaching art to kids, the act a balm to my soul, though every child's eager face made me think of my sisters, wondering if they'd grown into strangers, or if a piece of our bond lingered. Asheville's creative pulse, street festivals, gallery openings, kept me moving forward, though the full picture of my family's story felt like a canvas I couldn't finish. The emotional toll of navigating this fractured history didn't fade easily. Even as I pushed forward, each memory of my family's rejection a reminder of how fragile belonging can be. I'd spend hours sketching in my apartment, the rain a steady rhythm outside, wondering if I'd let this hurt define me too long, or if I'd reclaimed enough by building a new life with my friends. I started avoiding certain mountain trails tied to childhood memories, like the path to Grandfather Mountain where we'd hiked as a family, unable to face those ghosts without feeling that sting of loss. I'd walk through downtown Asheville on quiet evenings, past the street art and breweries, asking myself if I'd been too quick to shut them out completely, or if that distance was the only way I'd survive the pain. Reflecting on the journey to find peace, or at least acceptance, I spent a lot of time wandering Asheville's quieter corners, like the trails near the Biltmore estate, the sprawling grounds a backdrop to my thoughts about what I'd gained and lost. I'd remember the early days with my family, singing hymns in church, a unity now tainted by the memory of their cold goodbye. I thought about my cousins' words about their guilt, a revelation now warped by years of silence, wondering if they still prayed for me, or if they'd moved on. I'd sit in local parks, sketching the mountains in the distance, questioning if I'd been too naive to see their perspective back then, or if I'd ignored the cost of my honesty. Asheville's raw beauty, the misty peaks, the river's steady flow, felt like a challenge, pushing me to decide if I'd let this pain shape me forever, or if I could forge something new despite it. Now, as I sit here in my small apartment, the soft glow of my desk lamp casting shadows on my latest design project, the distant sound of crickets mixing with the occasional car passing by, I'm still wrestling with where to go from here. My life feels fuller, with friends who've become my family and a career that's slowly taking off, but not whole, not yet. There are nights when I stare at my phone, wondering if reaching out to my parents or sisters could mend something, or if it'd just reopen the wound. And then there's the part of me that just wants to focus on my own path, to keep building this new life in Asheville, Maybe even take a leap and move somewhere like Portland or Austin for a fresh chapter, though I'd hate to leave the mountains that have held me through so much. So, I'm turning to you, my listeners, because I'm at a crossroads and I could really use your perspective. Have you ever had to walk away from family to stay true to yourself, only to find out later there was more to their side of the story? How did you handle it? Did you try to rebuild that bridge, even if it meant more pain? Or did you focus on the new family you'd found, letting the past stay behind you? I'm torn between reaching out to my family, risking old hurts for the chance of some kind of closure, or just keeping this distance and pouring everything into the life I've built with my friends. Drop your thoughts below, because I'm still figuring out how to let go of the pain without losing the hope of one day finding peace with the people I used to call home.